tonight we're going to do wooden cars and heavyweight cars. So trucks part one. All right, so back in the day, trucks had wood beams. This piece up here is called the beam. So it's made of wood. And these things here are called the pedestals, and they are bolted on to the wood beam. All right. The truck has two kinds of springs. It has a helical spring here, and then it has a leaf spring in the middle, which is an elliptical spring. Some of those features carried on all the way until Amtrak Amfleet cars. So you're going to see a lot of that same, this is definitely an evolution. Okay. If you take a shine to this particular truck, you can buy them off Shapeways. I found this picture on, somebody's making this truck in HO scale, and they're offering it on Shapeways. Let's see, let me do that just in case. All right, I also found this one. This guy is selling these in O scale. I think they're O fine scale. But again, you can clearly make out that there's grain in the wood there, right? So, obviously it's made out of brass, this particular model, but he is attempting to show you the wood grain. You can see the springs. These would be the helical springs here. And then this is your elliptical spring. Now, the leaf springs actually rode on each other. You really can't do that in model form. It doesn't really work because the friction ends up being too large. But I've seen some variations that allow working leaf springs, sort of. They flex, they don't really spring. And that's what this guy's got here. They're not really acting like a leaf spring, but they are allowed to flex. So again, here you've got your coil springs, your helical springs there, and then your leaf springs in the middle. You can clearly make out that they have a wooden grain on the truck, and the pedestals are bolted to the truck. Okay. This particular one's a Pennsylvania Railroad truck. Again, this fellow's an O-scaler. He's selling this stuff. So, okay. By the 1890s, I'm going with that number because these three cars I'm going to show you next were 1890s era cars. It would appear that the Pennsylvania Railroad at least has gone to a steel beam. If you look at the beam here, the truck looks essentially identical, except that this beam across here is now made of steel instead of made of wood. The pedestals are still bolted onto the truck. Okay. These cars are cars of the, say, 60 or 70 foot length, and they're made of wood, so they're fairly lightweight. So four-wheel trucks predominate at this stage.
Jamie, just a curious, this has the steel frame. The first one's had the wooden frame. Have you bumped into anything that said that would be a fire hazard? If you had a hot box and a wooden frame up above, it seemed like that might cause some problems.
That's an interesting point. I hadn't really thought of it. I kind of think they went to steel just for like a durability issue, but that certainly could be a problem. So I don't know. I'll keep an eye out and I'll let you know if I find anything.
Thanks.
Sure. Okay, so here's another one. Again, and here's a third one. Now you can see there's some variations in here. Again, as I said earlier, I kind of threw this stuff in here because the LaBelle kit, any of these trucks would be wonderful under your LaBelle kit. But you can see some, minor variations, but in general, the whole thing is pretty much the same. These got these fancy, the pedestals are this fancy sort of crown shape, if you will. These other ones are just sort of more practical, circular kind of thing. Here you've got the same sort of thing. But again, you can see the general arrangement of the truck is pretty much exactly the same, all three of these, okay? So they've all got a beam, and even the wood beam back here, they've got a beam, they've got the pedestals bolted on, and you've got this equalizer bar underneath, and you've got the leaf springs, and you've got the helical springs too. All right, so here again, same, so all pretty much the same thing. Now here's one that's slightly different. The Pennsylvania Railroad favored trucks like this. It's an outside bearing truck, so that the truck, you might not know this, but the trucks, they don't just rest on the bolster like most model cars. Most model, when we build model trains, we just have the bolster screw in there, and the truck just sits on the round bolster. But in real life, there's bearings in there so that the cars don't rock back and forth as much. Well, this is a bearing here. The Pennsylvania Railroad liked this style where they have the bearing on the outside of the truck. And so that was a style that they tended to favor. Again, this is a wooden car from the Strasburg Railroad. This is another car from the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania. It's a Reading car. Somewhere I've read the name of this truck, but for the life of me, I don't know. If anybody knows, shout out. You know, it's like the designer's name or whatever. They've got a name for them. I'll try to look it up if anybody's interested. But again, I'm trying to, with 15 minutes at a segment, I'm trying to cover the broad general aspects rather than the proprietary trucks that every railroad had. Again, I tend to be sort of a Penske guy myself, and the Penske had all sorts of proprietary trucks that they were the only ones who used. They had them in 4 wheels and 6 wheels and all sorts of different stuff. So, I'm not trying to outline every single truck that every single railroad used. So, okay, so then we get into 6-wheel trucks. What happened was, as Pullman cars started getting longer and heavier, they started going with a 6-wheel truck. Obviously, even the wooden Pullman cars were to have a 6-wheel truck. Pullman actually had wood frame trucks that were 6-wheel trucks also. So again, just like this, just like the other, just like the 4-wheel trucks went through an evolution, so did the 6-wheel trucks. Okay, I believe this is a Pullman 2410 truck. So you can see again, there'd be a bearing in the middle or a bolster in the middle. This thing out here is a side bearing. There's the other side. So the truck would bear on that so that keep it from rocking excessively. All right. So it's got 2 sets of elliptical leaf springs, and it's got these coil springs in here. Notice that even though the beam is made of metal, the pedestals are still bolted on. That's what makes it a 2410 truck. If the pedestals were cast into the truck frame, it would be a 2410A. Okay, so that's the next thing there is the 2410A has the cast bolster. So I suppose if you had a metal, like I know we have in S-scale, we have some plastic ones. You could shave those little rivets off, those little bolt heads off if you wanted. Then you could have a 2410A instead of a 2410. Okay, here is a who are these people? Oh God, Protocraft. All right, Protocraft. I am darn tempted to fork over $129.95 for a pair of these trucks just to hold them in my hand and look at them because they're just so pretty. I mean, they literally have every single piece on them that the real truck had. So those are just kind of cool. Anyway, that's if you want a really nice O-scale truck, go to Protocraft and slap down $1.25 and get yourself a pair. Really, really beautiful models. Okay, so then we have the Pullman 242 truck. Now, again, I probably should have zoomed in on this a little bit, but you have a 242 and I'm sorry, let me back up just a minute. I want to say, I didn't necessarily mention this. You have a 2410 and a 2410A. There's also a 2411 and a 2411A. The 2410 has a 10-foot 6-inch wheelbase. So from this wheel, this bearing here to this bearing over here, 10-foot 6. The 2411 has an 11-foot wheelbase. Okay, and just like there's a 2410 and a 2410A, there's a 2411 and a 2411A. So if the pedestals are cast into the truck, it's a either 2411A or a 2410A. If they're bolted on, it's a 2410 or 2411. Again, right off the top of my head, I can tell you that 6 inches in S scale translates to a 32nd of an inch. So I'm not going to get too bent out of shape whether I've got 2410s or 2410A, 2411s. All right, I'm not going to worry too much about this. Keep in mind that truck type is something that Pullman did keep track of. If you look at, I know Wayner has a book out. I have a couple books out. They have the 1951 list of Pullman cars, and they have the 1961 list of Pullman cars. And the 2 things you can track down in that book are the air conditioning from last week and the truck type from this week and next week, well, or 2 weeks. So Pullman did keep track of that. So if you want to model a certain Pullman car, you can say, oh, I need to get some 2410 trucks, or I need to get 2411 trucks, or whatever it happens to be. So, okay, so then the next thing that came along was what was called, I'm sorry, let me keep thinking. these cars also have what this calls a drop equalizer, right? So this gadget right in here, this gadget right in here, those are drop equalizers. So then you go to the 242 truck, and that's a top equalized truck. And in this picture, you can't see it all that well, but this truck does not have that drop equalizer bar. I believe these are available in HO scale. What was done in the past is people would just kind of cut off the drop equalizer and sort of modify them a little bit and make a reasonable representation of the truck. Now, again, I'm thinking this is a 242, but it might be a 242A. This next slide, I believe really is a 242A. Okay, and you see this hole right here and this hole right here. That's how you tell a 242 from a 242A. Okay, the 242A has one hole kind of right smack dab over the bearing, whereas the 242A has a truck over the two holes sort of just offside of the bearings. So again, and now keep in mind, Donizetti here, which is at the Mad River Nickel Plate Museum in Sandusky, Ohio, or no, Bellevue. It's in Bellevue, pretty close to Sandusky. Same exit off the turnpike. But I managed to snap that picture fairly well lit. But a lot of times you look at these cars and you can't hardly tell what kind of truck they've got, let alone if it's got one hole or two under there. So again, this is a bit of a thing there. Whoops. Let's see. So there. See, I don't know. I think that's got one hole right over the bearing. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay. So again, but that's the major difference. Okay. So if you see one hole right there, and no, not the pair holes, then it's a 242. And if you see the pair, it's a 242A. Here you can see a little more clearly the lack of the drop equalizer, and they've got this little bar thing that kind of holds up the bottom of the elliptical leaf spring. Okay. All right. Let's see what else. Okay, so here's Protocraft's model of the 242 truck. Now, unfortunately, if you wanted one of these, you're too late. They're sold out. But again, I would consider buying a set of these just because it's such a beautiful model. So, okay. Another truck that was very popular, and I didn't even realize this was a different truck type until about a month ago. I was communicating with a friend of mine who we share a passion for passenger car trucks. And he was telling me about this top equalized or the straight equalizer truck. And I was like, what? Who? I just thought it was a top equalized truck. But he says, no, it's different. So, he said to me, and I said, he was trying to find one of these that he can go measure and take photographs of. And I thought, man, I wish you had told me a couple of years ago, because I just took this picture on my way out to see him actually at the S-Scale convention that year. So, had I known, I would have taken a bunch more pictures of the truck. I didn't realize he wanted one. So anyway, but this is a straight equalizer truck. This car is, I believe, a nickel plate coach. And I know the Chesapeake and Ohio and probably the Missouri Pacific, because I know he's a Missouri Pacific modeler. They all use this truck. Other than that, those are, again, I know the C&O kind of like them. I'm seeing it on a nickel plate car, and this fellow wants them for his Missouri Pacific cars. So I know that they were popular there. Again, I don't believe they're used on like Pullman cars. They would be more like railroad owned coaches or diners, maybe something like that. So. Okay, and so last of all, I think this is my last slide. I have to hope that it is. So we're gonna have a little bit of a quiz here. I hope you're all paying attention. So here, what kind of trucks are under this car? No answers yet, huh? Okay, yeah. So yeah, I caught this one down the road. This picture was taken about a mile from my house. I was riding my bike one day and I said, oh my God, a passenger car and a flat car, look at that. So it's an old CP rail car. I believe it's an 812 Pullman, but I'm not entirely sure. And it's on a flat car going somewhere. So anyway, that's what I got for tonight. As I said, in 2 weeks, we'll take up lightweight trucks. As you can probably guess, lightweight trucks are, more, I managed to cover everything, the first 100 years of railroading for one program, and I'm going to get the next 40 years or 50 years of railroading next. So it obviously was a little bit more complex. So anyway, hope you enjoy it. Tune in a couple weeks.